Welcome to Chapter 10. In this chapter, we'll discuss groups and teams. We'll discuss the process through which groups evolve into teams, and we'll discuss why organizations want to use teams and the different types of teams that are often used in organizations. So as a first step, let's define a group. Your textbook defines a group as two or more freely interacting individuals who are motivated to pursue a common goal. Of course, not all groups evolve into teams. What are some of the key differences between groups and teams? We'll discuss the process through which groups can evolve into high-performing teams later in this chapter. But as a first step, let's define the difference between groups and teams. As a first, the selection of members for a group can be random, whereas the selection for members for a team has to be very intentional. And we are to select individuals who have complementary skills. We need to select members of a team based on their skill set and how it adds to the existing composition of the team. Whereas in groups, we might not necessarily pay much attention to team composition. Another key difference between groups and teams is that of interdependence. And this is why I use this image of Ocean's 11 here on this slide. An high interdependent group means that every team member depends on all the other team members for his or her own success. That means that we are highly interdependent. If one team member fails to do his or her job, the whole team fails. This is interdependence. In a group, my performance does not influence the outcome of the other participants of the group. Think about a relay team. The speed that I run contributes to the overall performance on the team, but does not influence the speed of the other runners. In a team, maybe a sports team, a basketball team, or a soccer team, my ability to get the goal to get the ball to a spot where somebody else can score a point is interdependent. The other player's ability to score a point depends on my ability to bring the ball where he or she can do that. And so groups and teams are different in the degree of interdependence, and teams tend to have very high degree of interdependence, just like in the movie Ocean's 11, where every team member brought a different skill set to the table, complementary skills, and there was a high level of interdependence between the individual team members. A third difference between groups and teams is in accountability. In a group, people feel accountable for their own contribution. In a team, a high-performing team, people feel accountable for their own contribution as well as the team's contribution. I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that my team members can perform their task fully, because that is going to influence my success as well. So of course, all of these three variables are interconnected: interdependence, mutual accountability, and complementary skills. So those are the three key differences between groups and teams. Of course, there are some other differences. For example, sometimes teams set their own goals, whereas groups have the goals assigned to them. Sometimes groups tend to be more focused on efficiency, whereas teams are focused on quality, creativity, and efficiency. Groups sometimes have their performance measured by outsiders, whereas teams measure their own performance. So of course, there are different ways to assess or to differentiate between groups and teams, but the key differences are in interdependence, complementary skills, and mutual accountability. What are some of the benefits of using teams? Why do organizations want to use teams? We talked about when team decision-making would be beneficial in Chapter 8. Very similar implications also apply here in terms of using groups and teams. When organizations are faced with very complex tasks that no single individual could solve or complete on their own, they are likely to benefit from the use of teams. So when organizations face very complicated tasks, it might be beneficial to assign those tasks to a team. Also, working on a team can be very motivating for employees because it helps employees meet their social needs. If you remember, we discussed that in the beginning of the semester when we talked about motivation. So some of the benefits of using teams is that we have multiple sets of expertise, multiple sets of knowledge, of experience that can better inform the group and enable it to make better decisions. So we have a greater number of ideas and areas of expertise. That's a benefit of using a team that increases the quality of group and team decision making. Of course, because people are more motivated to work on a team because of that social benefit, the need for affiliation, individuals might also work harder as a result of working on a team. This is the idea of social facilitation, that people, as a result of their commitment to the team, their satisfaction of being member of a team, their desire not to disappoint their team members, might work harder as a result of working on a team. And in that way, the organization can get a higher outcome for the same amount of input. We have the same number of employees, but because they work together, they accomplish more thanks to motivation, and they accomplish higher quality thanks to the cross-fertilization of ideas. So organizations will use teams to tackle very complex tasks that require different skill sets. They will benefit from doing so because individuals will be more motivated. Thanks to social facilitation, they will work harder, they will make higher quality decisions, and they will be able to overcome their individual biases, which very often negatively influence the quality of our decision making. But when we work on a team, every individual has a different set of biases, which helps us possibly avoid biases altogether. Another final benefit of using teams is that teams can serve as a training ground for newcomers and enhance understanding of organizational processes and norms for all the individuals who participate on the team. Of course, working in a team is not without its challenges. We already discussed some of those challenges when we discussed diversity in the beginning of the semester. Inevitably, if we have members of a team who have complementary skills, have different backgrounds, they might also encounter some conflict. And so this is a potential disadvantage of using teams, is that teams can be very high performing, but it takes them a lot longer because they have to work out their differences and resolve conflict. They have to allow every team member to participate in the process. So team performance can be better than individual performance, but not when it comes to efficiency. Individuals will make decisions in a much more efficient way. Working in teams is a lot more time consuming. And so we should not use teams if we don't have the available time. Teams are not as efficient as individuals. Another potential conflict that we've already discussed in previous chapters is groupthink. Just like group decision making is potentially at a risk of facing groupthink, so is any other group performance and joint decision making in the group. And a final risk for group decision making, which is extensively discussed in this chapter, is social loafing. Social loafing is a situation in which an individual does not carry his or her own weight and shirks his or her responsibilities and tries to serve the team effort, so to speak. This happens a lot in student group projects when the professor assigns a single grade to the entire group and all the group members receive the same grade regardless of their contribution. And this might mean that some team members will decide to socially loaf, rely on their team members to carry the majority of the work and not contribute to the best of their ability. So this is almost the opposite of the social facilitation effect. Social facilitation creates synergistic outcomes in which 1 + 1 is greater than 2. We are able to accomplish more because we work together, and our final outcome is greater than the sum of our individual contributions. Social loafing is the opposite, where individual members of the group contribute less because they can hide behind the team, so to speak. And so potentially the final outcome of the team is less than the sum of the individual members' potential contribution. So if there are these challenges, social loafing, groupthink, inefficiency due to more time need for the team to come together and build cohesiveness before they can perform. When should we use teams? Obviously, not every organizational task will benefit from assigning it to a team. We will only benefit from using groups and teams when the task is very complex. Complex tasks will benefit from having a group of individuals with complementary skills, diverse backgrounds, diverse fields of expertise, tackling these problems and these issues. And so if task complexity is high, we will benefit from assigning the task to a team. If it's a simple task, there is no reason to waste organizational time and resources if this task can be handled by a single individual. Time is another consideration. If this is a crisis and we have no time, we are going to need to rely on the decision of a single individual. And maybe the decision will not be as good as it could have been if it were assigned to a group, but if we have no time, we cannot benefit from the expertise of a diverse team. And so if we have time restrictions, we should assign tasks to individuals. Teams will only benefit the organization if they are given sufficient time to build cohesiveness and trust and reach a high-performing stage. A final consideration is commitment. If commitment is very important, if individual employee buy-in to the organization's mission, vision, objectives, goals, tasks is essential, then assigning those individuals to work on a team could enhance their commitment, their buy-in. If commitment and buy-in, intrinsic commitment and buy-in, are not that important to us, and we feel that we can force the courses of actions or decisions that we need to see happen top down, then we do not necessarily need to use a team. So again, organizations can greatly benefit from teams. We've discussed lots of advantages in terms of employee motivation, performance, output, but of course not every task will benefit from the assignment of a team. So now that we have established some of the differences between groups and teams and when organizations should assign different tasks to groups, we can look at some more detail regarding group functioning. A first decision should be how many people should be placed on the group. Should we have a large group of 10 to 12 individuals or even more? Or should we have a small group? Well, again, here, as this is organizational behavior and we are involved in a study that is based on contingencies, this again is an example of a contingency. It depends. It depends what the group is supposed to accomplish. If the group is involved in a brainstorming session, trying to generate as many ideas as possible, we would greatly benefit from having a large group. But if the group's assignment is to make a decision, we would more likely benefit from having a smaller group, preferably an uneven number of members, so that members can discuss in an efficient way the different options and then vote and make a decision. So the size of the group is not an absolute, is not a given. It depends on the task that we need the group or the team to accomplish. Another question is, how do we select who should be a member of the group or the team? What determines group composition? As we discussed earlier, the key difference between groups and teams is complementary skills. If you want to give your group of employees the potential to evolve into a high-performing team, you should focus on selecting people based on their skill set and include in the team people who bring different skill sets to the table. If you remember our example from the Intel decision-making blunder, when the decision was made by the leader of the organization who had an engineer's mindset, because he came from an engineering background, the organization was not able to make a decision to solve its problem. It was only when someone from public relations was brought to the table and enabled the leader to consider some other perspectives that were in his own blind spots that the leader was then eventually able to make the right decision. So if we want to give our group the potential to evolve into a high-performing team, we should select people who have a complementary skill set, complementary skills. Again, like the example in Ocean's 11. Every member of the team brings a different skill set to the table based from their professional background, their industry connections, their experience with customers, their experience with suppliers, whatever it is. We have a diverse set of individuals who can contribute different perspectives, different points of view, different areas of expertise. This brings us to decision-making theory. Decision-making theory indeed supports this perspective that when we use very diverse individuals in our group or our team, they are more likely to bring a broader set of skills and knowledge to the table and make higher quality decisions. So decision-making theory suggests that heterogeneous groups with members from various backgrounds will make higher quality decisions than homogeneous groups of people who have similar or the same background. But social categorization theory, if you remember from our discussion on diversity in the beginning of the semester, warns us against some of the challenges that diversity represents. Social categorization theory suggests that human beings like to divide the world into people who are like us and different from us. We might not necessarily do this in a very conscious way, but given human nature, we tend to have an easier time working with people who are like us. We have a higher level of trust with people who are like us. We are less likely to experience conflict with these kinds of people and have an easier time building cohesiveness. And so social categorization theory warns us that diversity does not come without challenges, and that very diverse groups, heterogeneous groups, are more likely to experience conflict, are less likely to build trust and cohesiveness very quickly, and are going to need more time to establish reciprocity and trust before they can reach high-performing performance or high-performing team status. And so social categorization theory warns us that we might need to give diverse teams more time and more support in building high trust and high cohesiveness before we can reap the benefits of their diversity as suggested by decision-making theory. The diverse nature of the team members with complementary skills, also enables us to assign different roles to individual team members. And people within teams will take on different roles. Those roles can be assigned by the team leader, or people naturally drift into one role versus the other. The two key categories of roles that contribute to team performance are task roles and maintenance roles. Task roles are those roles that are focused on the job at hand, the task that the team needs to complete. Clearly, there is great importance in a team to having people taking on task roles. This is going to greatly contribute to group effectiveness. Task roles can include people who act as contributors, meaning members who provide the team with good technical information or data. They do their part. We can also have information seekers who might contact outside experts to get us more information that we do not currently have within the team. We have individuals who evaluate the information that we receive and think about it critically. And of course, we can also have challengers. Challengers still are part of the positive task roles. If you remember, we discussed the idea that challengers can protect groups against groupthink. This is why very often we assign someone the role of devil's advocate to challenge, openly question the goals or even the methods that the team is using. This is going to lead to functional conflict. While we tend to see conflict as bad, as undesirable, conflict can be quite functional and help teams make higher quality decisions rather than blindly follow without questioning. And so all of these roles, the task roles that are focused on what the team is trying to accomplish, can enhance group effectiveness, including the challenger, who can force the team to very critically think about what it wants to accomplish or how it wants to accomplish its goals. A different set of roles are maintenance roles. Maintenance roles are more related to the social interaction of group members. The people who adopt maintenance roles, you can see them as cheerleaders, those individuals who are taking responsibility for the interpersonal climate on the team. Those individuals will make sure that people on the team are collaborating, that they're communicating openly, that they are encouraged to voice their opposition, and that they can resolve conflict through compromise or even potentially agreement. And so the individuals who are taking on the maintenance roles are more responsible for the relationship between the team members. And they are as important as the people driving the task roles. Since teams are made up of individuals who can, throughout the process of working together, experience frustration, challenges, disagreements, we also need team members who focus on making sure that the interpersonal relationships between team members are progressing in a positive way. So both task roles and maintenance roles contribute to group effectiveness. At times, we might have team members who are more focused on their own goals than on the team's goals or the organizational goals. Those self-oriented goals can be individuals who try to block the team's performance, who try to get team leaders or outside leaders to focus on themselves rather than the team as a whole, who dominate the discussion, or who are avoiding the discussion by communicating non-interest or lack of desire to contribute. Of course, all of these roles negatively contribute to group effectiveness. And so it's the team leader's role to manage the self-oriented roles, the people who are more focused on their own objectives rather than the team objectives. So these are some of the roles that we are likely to see people assume on a group or a team. In the next part of the chapter, we will also look at different group norms and how those norms help us build cohesive teams. And we will explore the process that teams follow from their status as random groups to high-performing teams.